Week 1 started off with a bang. Mark. Football is back. You are back. We are back. Man, the 2021 season is upon us, my guy. What's going on, buddy?
You know, we were having a lot of fun in the DFS channel last night. I mean, I got wiped. I didn't make any good lineups. I mean, I built plus EV lineups, but none of them got there. You know, I think I had one lineup where I went full Galbrain. I wanted to get into like one of those 25,000 entrant fields, and I played 3 tight ends. I had Captain Gronk, which got there, scored 2 touchdowns, but I also had both Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz with Dak Prescott. I faded the Dallas wide receivers.
Well, it looks like you faded the Vipers tonight too. You faded the Vipers tonight too.
You know what? They were in my car, and like I'm tired. You know, it's been a long work week. I got to work tomorrow, and I was just like, shit, I don't have my Pit Vipers. They're too far away.
Well, did you know last night, Mark, that the game last night, Cowboys, but this drew a 15.9 on the overnight TV rating scale. A 15.9. This is insane. I mean, that was up 16% from last year. So, like, Nielsen had a field day last night with these TV ratings, and this game just blew everything out of the water. This was maybe one of the best games we might see all year, and this was the first game of the season. So, it was a fantasy player's dream, because we're sitting there last night, and I know a lot of people thought, okay, well, maybe Zeke will get in the end zone. Maybe Zeke will get there. Maybe Fournette or Ronald Jones will do something. Maybe Gio will explode. But it was a pass fest. And it was Tom Brady and Dak Prescott and Evans and Godwin and Cooper and CeeDee Lamb.
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you just say Mike Evans?
No.
What the hell did Mike Evans do? He was invisible.
He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. I think, isn't he on pace for like, what's he? He's on pace for some. He
would need 2 seasons worth of football games to get to 1,000 yards. That's what he's on.
That's what it is, yes. And we get that by week 1. Buy all of that information from week 1. You can safely sell Mike Evans. Totally kidding. Yeah, but there's a lot of people that are worried about Ezekiel Elliott, because that's really the biggest thing. And we'll talk about a couple things out of this that we can take out of this game. But most people are scared to death right now that their round 1 Ezekiel Elliott shares, which I have a ton of, are going to go by the wayside, and they're going to get thrown in the garbage this year based off 1 week. Now, look, I am not one to overreact in week 1. I just think it's too small of a sample size, and that's something that you preach all the time. So, like, I'm hoping here that you understand it's just week 1, Mark.
But you do realize that there's like no such thing as a large enough sample size in NFL. We need like 10 years of data to quantify 1 MLB season's worth of data for the NFL. Like we need 10 seasons to accumulate 1 MLB season's worth of data. So I think we have a tendency, and I mean, you just said it yourself, you're not one to overreact to week 1. And I think that bites us in the ass more than we think. Listen, fantasy football is a game of incomplete information. DFS is a game of incomplete information. And when we start grinding our best balls in May, we're working with really, really incomplete information. And as the offseason goes on, that information starts to complete itself a little bit more. We see who's practicing with the ones. We see who is playing with the first team in preseason. And then we get to week 1 and we can actually quantify what we've been thinking this whole time. And there's always been this argument all season long that like Tony Pollard is going to have a bigger role than he did last year. He only caught 28 passes last year. And he's somebody who probably has 60, 70, 80 catch upside in the right offense. Could Dallas be the right offense? I think it could be if they're going to throw this much. But the only reason I'm a little bit worried about Ezekiel Elliott, it's not so much snap share as much as it is opportunity share. If he is no longer going to command the amount of targets, this was a guy who had 80 or 90 target upside. He's done it before. But if Tony Pollard is going to seize more of that pass catching role, and he did last night, so it could continue to happen. This could keep happening long term. If that happens, Ezekiel Elliott's not going to return first round value. It's just not going to happen. He's going to be closer to a second or third round pick. And we might be looking back going, you know what, this guy should have been going near Najee Harris or DeAndre Swift or Antonio Gibson. I'm not saying go out and sell him for Miles Sanders. That's dumb. That's dumb. I'm saying, like, if you are going to sell Zeke, you need to still need to be getting first round equity for him. You need to be selling Zeke for Saquon Barkley. You need to be selling Zeke for Devontae Adams. You're not selling Zeke low because of one game. That's dumb. So when I say I'm worried about Ezekiel Elliott, I am concerned in the sense that the pass catching role that I was hoping he'd have on the teams that I drafted him, he may not have. We don't know. But again, going back to my argument, like the information for the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers completed itself a little bit more yesterday. Now you're right. It's a small sample, but I think there was more actionable information in last night's game than what people are going to be willing to give it credit for.
All right, let me go in the complete opposite direction. Do not panic on Zeke. He's going to be fine. His snap share's fine. His target share's going to be fine. Tony Pollard caught 2 more passes last night than Zeke. Now, he was more efficient. 4 catches, 4 targets, 4 catches, 29 yards compared to Zeke's 2 for 2 for 6 yards. Yeah, that's pretty bad. But look, I think the game's. I mean, it was immediately from the first snap of the game. It was indicative of, okay, this is going to be a pass fest. We're going to throw the football all over the yard tonight. And to me, I'm going to have to see a couple games, like week 4, week 5. Like, that's where I'm neither one of us are worried about his snap share. Look, the snap share between those guys, Tony had 20 snaps. Zeke had 70. Okay, 70% snaps. So, 70 snaps. Tony had 20. Tony had 24% snaps compared to Zeke's 84%. So the snap share is not the problem, and I agree with you. You're worried about the target share, and I can understand that. And I think Tony Pollard is going to see his fair amount of catches, but I think this is going to be more of like a. I think it's going to be more of like a Dalvin Cook, Alex Madison sort of backfield, and I think that's appropriate. And I don't think that Zeke is going to have, this season-long problem with Tony Pollard stealing a bunch of. Look, there's going to be games where Pollard is getting more catches and more targets, but I don't think it's going to be every game, and I don't think it's going to be this permanent role of satellite back for Tony Pollard. I think Zeke's going to be fine in that role, and he's going to be fine, catching passes. They're not just going to rip him off the field on 3rd and 4th down and in other passing situations. Look, Zeke was playing the toughest run D in the league. Like, he's never arguably in the league. He's not going to face a tougher run defense for the rest of the year. So he is going to still return that top 8, top 9, top 10 draft value, I believe, where you took him. And where I took him, of course, I was pairing him with Najee and Eckler in a lot of leagues, but I think he's going to be fine. I'm not going to panic. It's one game in a game where it was obvious from the jump that they were going to be throwing it all over the place. Let's call a spade what it is. He didn't look good, okay, but I just don't think that if this was, the Raiders' run defense. Now I'm going to be a little bit more worried because it's one of the weakest run defenses in the league. This is not only one of the best run defenses in the league, it's one of the best overall defenses in the league. So, I'm not going to panic that Zeke, didn't look like Nyheim Hines when it came to catching passes last night. I can't do it, and I'm not going to let one game, even 2 or even 3 games, once we get to like week 4 or 5, then I'm going to start being like, okay, this is not just a trend. This is like turning into factual information, and Zeke no longer has this, sort of Aaron Jones RB 1 to 3 upside. He's got Nick Chubb, maybe even Jonathan Taylor. Like that's where he's at. He's in the Nick Chubb category now, and it's possible he could end there. But I still think that where you drafted Ezekiel Elliott, now if you draft him in 5, I don't know if you'll get that return, but if you draft him 8 or 9. Yeah, if he slipped there, I think you could get that return regardless of what happens with Tony Pollard.
Would you trade Ezekiel Elliott right now for Austin Eckler?
Oh, 100%. Because I think Austin Eckler's, we've agreed, Austin Eckler's range of outcomes to me, is higher. And we've discussed, I could go over these numbers with Austin Eckler with Melvin Gordon, and now that Melvin Gordon's gone and there's worse talent behind him, Austin Eckler could go Gallbrain this year. So, long story short, yes, I would absolutely trade Ezekiel Elliott for Austin Eckler because he's going to catch so many passes. He doesn't need goal line touches. We've seen that.
Yeah, I think the path to Austin Eckler breaking fantasy football is as simple as him commanding more carries than he has in the past because he's really explosive and he'll gash out chunk plays on carries. So like if he's already getting that massive satellite back plus role, so the path is literally just for him to command carries at that point. And goal line work as well, but that's random, that's unpredictable. But yeah, I don't know. With Ezekiel Elliott, I think it's easy to kind of sit back and just be like, all right, let's not panic. I'm a little concerned because I drafted him I drafted him as somebody that I was hoping is going to catch 60 or 70 passes. And hopefully that still happens. It still can. It's still very I won't look back at the end of the season if he catches 70 balls and be like, holy cow, I thought he was dead. No, it was going to be like, all right. So it didn't really matter. But like I said, I think we have a tendency to kind of underreact to things we see in week one because we are too afraid to overreact. What about the Bucs receivers? Because I thought we saw some crazy stuff, and this is what they did last year. Like the Bucs receivers were around robin every week. Like next week in DFS, I'm already looking at Mike Evans because he's probably going to be like 2% owned because nobody wants to play him. So I don't know. What's your take on the Bucs receivers? Because I have a lot of Chris Godwin this year, so I was pretty happy with how last night played out.
Well, real quick, last thing on this Zeke thing. Speaking of week one, remember last year when everybody overreacted to Nyheim Hines receiving essentially 53% of the snap share in week one? Okay, like we know how that worked out. Okay, Nyheim Hines.
Yeah, but Nyheim Hines got that workload for like 8 straight weeks.
I mean,
Jonathan Taylor. Listen, here's the thing with Jonathan Taylor last year. The reason he didn't have as big a win rate as he should have for somebody that finished the season the way he did was because you had to invest a lot of capital in him to begin with, and you really got nothing out of him for like the first 8 weeks. At least with David Montgomery, who had the massive surge, he spiked at the same time Jonathan Taylor did. It's just that the first 8 games, you were still getting reasonable median outcomes out of David Montgomery that you weren't getting out of Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor had you in a position to lose for the first 8 or 9 weeks of the season.
A lot of people probably traded him in redraft. They were probably like, look, I'm not. So like if you traded Jonathan Taylor in redraft, by the time he became that league winner, you probably weren't winning your league because, unless obviously you traded him for a league winner, but like maybe like a James Robinson or something. But like, it's look,
the problem with Jonathan Taylor was like you were too afraid to not play him because he's like explosive, the touchdown equity, like any day he
the
could
offensive
just go
line.
Off. Yeah, it's just like you couldn't bench him. You were like, I was too afraid to bench him, so I kept looking at those bad scores in my lineup until he finally exploded and I limped into the playoffs. But like, Nyheim Hines definitely hurt Jonathan Taylor for a decent chunk of the season last year. You never want to see these guys that you hope have pass catching upside start to get neutered in the pass catching department by a satellite back. And that's the thesis here with Tony Pollard.
Well, speaking of being neutered, he just got neutered. Jonathan Taylor just got neutered today because Nyheim Hines just signed an extension. So they're bringing him back. I think he's like he's the highest paid non-starting running back in the league. So he's going to be on the field a lot. He is going to be that heavy, pass catcher. So for anybody that drafted Jonathan Taylor as the RB4 thinking that, or the RB5 thinking he was going to return that RB5 value this year, you're going to be mistaken. Like Jonathan Taylor is now firmly for me in that Nick Chubb sort of role. Like, yeah, he can be a top 5 running back in fantasy, but his odds of doing so are significantly less because there is a very talented, very reliable, very efficient pass catcher who is going to catch more passes in this backfield more likely than Jonathan Taylor. So Nyheim Hines is a really, really good guy, really good player to own in PPR, especially if you're one of those people that went hero or zero running back in the draft. But yeah, okay. So getting back to this Tampa Bay backfield, or the Tampa Bay receivers, because we got to really kind of talk about both. But you asked me about receivers for the 6th straight game that they have played together. Antonio Brown once again has outplayed Chris Godwin, and he once again
He did not outplay Chris
absolutely
Godwin.
outplayed Chris Godwin.
He did not like 9 balls. What are you talking about?
Who fumbled on the goal line? Who caught?
He fumbles one. You're saying Antonio Brown outplayed Chris Godwin because of one play?
No. If you let me
Godwin
finish, he outplayed Chris Godwin, Mark, because he did not fumble on the goal line and did not put the game on the line. Number 2, he outplayed Chris Godwin because he caught less passes for more yards, and he was essentially a better player the entire game. Antonio Brown outplayed Chris Godwin last night, and he's done so now in 6 straight contests they've been on the field together.
I don't think you can say he outplayed him when he did not receive as many targets. Like, Chris Godwin saw more targets. Chris Godwin caught 9 balls, went over 100 yards, caught the touchdown. They had the same game, except Chris Godwin was just more productive. You're right. Chris Godwin fumbled. That happened. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Antonio Brown outplayed him. That just means Chris Godwin did make a mistake. I agree with you.
A crucial mistake.
Yeah, fine. It's a crucial mistake. Whatever. But you are picking straws at the wrong wide receiver here. Chris Godwin scored almost 30 fantasy points last night. I am heavily invested in Chris Godwin, and it's like you're coming at me saying I should be nervous about Chris Godwin when I'm just like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I'm pumped about Chris Godwin.
I'm just saying you probably overdrafted Chris Godwin. Look, Antonio Brown had 24.2.
I overdrafted the dude who scored almost 30 PPR points last night. If we're going to talk about being overdrafted, let's focus on Mike Evans.
Antonio Brown was going as wide receiver. What was his ADP? He was
Antonio Brown was a great draft pick. He was a fantastic draft pick in PPR.
He was
Chris Godwin a bad one.
He was like the wide receiver version of Kenyon Drake or Kirk Cousins, a steal at the ADP. Last night, Chris Godwin had 11.7 yards per reception. Antonio Brown had 24. He outplayed Chris Godwin. Now it's splitting hairs. I get it. It was close. They both played great. Mike Evans, look, they're not all 3 going to eat every single week. There's going to be a guy left out, maybe 2 guys if you include Gronk. There's going to be a guy that's left out, I think, week in and week out. You're never going to see all 4 of these guys smash. You know, if you do, you know that running backs room's going to have a problem the next day in the office. But look, all 4 of those guys, they're not going to smash. And probably 3 of them aren't going to smash every single night. It's pretty much either going to be 2 of them every single week, and you just pick your 2 and you roll the dice on them. I just feel like I would rather roll the dice. I would rather have Mike Evans in totality over Chris Godwin, because I think Antonio Brown is a bigger problem for Chris Godwin than Chris Godwin or Antonio Brown is for Mike Evans. And I think that's going to be the case more often than not. So, look, there's going to be find the sucker in your league, the fish in your league, and be the shark and go after and grab Mike Evans. That would be my advice. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Mike Evans had 1 less target than Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown had 7 targets. Mike Evans had 6. Chris Godwin had 14.
Well,
Chris Godwin, is going to be around. This is what this offense does. This is going to be around Robin. Next week, Mike Evans could be the one getting 14 targets, and Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown could each be getting 6 or 7.
I agree, 100%.
So, I mean, couldn't you make the argument that maybe you could go out and get Mike Evans for a little cheaper than you should be able to? Mike Evans is probably not worth where he was drafted. He was being drafted at the 3-4 turn. That's not what I would be going and paying for Mike Evans right now. But I would be, for the same reason everyone should be going out to try and acquire Zeke, I would probably be going out to try and acquire Mike Evans. It's just, you're going to be able to get him cheaper.
Yeah, here's if you want to do a 1-for-1 deal, if somebody is going to give you, or you could offer, let's say you have a guy, T. Higgins. We'll just pull a name out of the sky. T. Higgins for Mike Evans. Give me Mike Evans. I love T. Higgins.
Give me T. Higgins.
Oh,
give me T. Higgins. I've been drafting T. Higgins over Mike Evans all summer.
Oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. In the show now.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is, dude. T. Higgins is a baller.
Okay. The receivers, we agree. I don't think it's going to be this wide receiver core, including Gronk in that. I don't think it's going to be necessarily a headache. Okay, I think Gronk's going to end the year as a tight end 1 for what that's worth. I think Godwin's going to end the year probably as a strong RB wide receiver 2. Antonio Brown could do the same thing as well. And Mike Evans is going to be on that wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2, teeter-totter, whatever that thing was called that we rode as children on the playground. I think that's where they're all going to be. It's not really going to be what I would classify as a headache. What is going to be a headache, and I have been saying it all offseason, the Tampa Bay Bucks backfield. You got to stay away from this. Like I don't want any part of it.
Worst.
Oh my God, it's going to be worse than New England. It's going to be worse than New England.
We're like 2 weeks away. We're 2 weeks away from Keyshawn Vaughn being fantasy relevant because Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones look so freaking bad.
It's terrible.
Every time Ronald Jones touches the football, I just say in my head, "Damn it, Ronald Jones!" I can't. What? No, that's a bit from some. I heard that somewhere. That's a Matt Kelly thing. I'm certain of it. Damn it, Ronald Jones is a Matt Kelly thing, and it's like and it's so accurate. Every time he touches the freaking football, it's like he is looking for ways to screw up.
He's asking to get benched. Well, he didn't have to ask to get benched last night because it happened. He played 6 snaps and he had 14 yards and he got benched and was never heard from again. He disappeared like a fart in the wind. And we know from Bruce Arians' history, we know Ronald Jones or when a Bruce Arians running back puts the ball on the ground, you're in the doghouse. That's not a good thing when you are a running back that plays for Bruce Arians and you are giving the ball up. We don't know how long this doghouse is going to last. But if you drafted Ronald Jones thinking this guy's going to have some breakout season, you're going to be in for a bad time. Now, if you were asking me during draft season, oh, Chris, if you had to choose a Bucs running back to own, who would it be? It would be Leonard Fournette just based off talent.
I agree with you.
But look, that's not saying much. If I have Leonard Fournette as my RB4, I ain't excited about that. He needs to be my RB5 or 6. Like I don't want anything to do with Gio, and I think with Gio's a quality running back. We know this. I think that they're going to include Gio in the game plan more and more and more as the season goes along. That's going to be a problem, and that's going to be the main reason for this headache backfield. It's going to be a 3-man rotation all the way around all season long. You do not want to have these guys in your starting lineup. I don't really care what happens. You don't want to have them in there.
It's pretty gross, and I don't disagree. I love targeting ambiguous backfields, but there's additional stink with this backfield that I can't quite gauge. It's disgusting, and I have 2% Ronald Jones in best ball. One of the times I drafted him, it was because he fell 30-something spots past ADP, and I just begrudgingly hit the draft button. I don't have much Leonard Fournette either. This was not a backfield I was excited to invest in. I have a decent amount of Gio Bernard. I've got 12% Gio Bernard. I thought he was a plus EV pick, but everyone else, I think this team is the wide receivers. The wide receivers are the ones you want in fantasy.
Yeah. You don't want any part of this backfield. I think it's going to be a worse. I think it's going to be a bigger headache than New England, and that's bad. Speaking of other backfields,
hold on. Let me ask you one thing really quick. Wow. How much Amari Cooper did you actually end up with?
Unbelievable. Ruined my. I had a really good segue there into the Ravens backfield, and Mark just shat on it. He said, "Nope, not tonight."
I'm giving you a chance to victory lap because I know you've been drafting a ton of Amari Cooper.
Oh, God.
It's all right. So have I.
Let me walk the children through what I have done. Okay, so a lot of people know in these redraft leagues, I've been going heavy running back, like we'll say Eckler and Najee 1 and 2. And then I come back in the third round, it's pick 9, 10, 11, or 12. And obviously in the third round, see how the board falls. Typically the board falls where Swift is there in the third. And I'm hammering the draft button there. Well, then Kyle Pitts is still on the board in round 4. I'm going after that tight end that what I think is going to be a tight end advantage, positional advantage at tight end every week with Kyle Pitts in round 4. I'm getting Amari Cooper. I was getting Amari in round 5 as my wide receiver 1, and then I was turning around in round 6.
Playing with? Who the hell are you playing with that's letting Amari Cooper slip to the 5th?
These were in Patreon leagues. Like these were
This
in
is
leagues.
unacceptable.
This
unacceptable. I want to know who is in these leagues, what patrons are in these leagues, so I can revoke their membership.
Well, you got to remember. I believe CD Lamb's ADP was higher, but I was turning around the 6th round and I was getting Adam Thielen in the 6th round, and that's what I was telling you.
You're a fish for that pick.
When
Adam
we were
Thielen's
talking. Oh no, you're out of your mind. The best value at wide receiver, in my opinion. Other than Antonio Brown.
No, that was probably Antonio Brown, honestly.
Yeah.
I'll let you have that. That was probably Antonio Brown.
That's part of the reason why when we were talking about draft strategy and like going wide receiver heavy early and running back heavy early. That's why those are the two reasons why. If those are my two my wide receiver 1 and my wide receiver 2, yeah, I'm feeling great about it. Now, if I'm going up against a guy that has, Devontae Adams and Calvin Ridley, yeah, I'm probably more weeks than not, I'm going to take a loss at the wide receiver position, but I'm still going to be better at the wide receiver position than the majority of the people in my league, along with having better running backs. And if Kyle Pitts does what most of us think Kyle Pitts is going to do, I'm going to also have that advantage at tight end. So that's why that was my argument for it. If I wasn't getting a guy like Amari Cooper and Adam Thielen in the 5th and 6th round, I think there'd be more merit to it. But, yeah, dude, the 5th round, I've got so much Amari Cooper your head would spin.
I ended up with a lot more Amari Cooper than CeeDee Lamb. I had a tough time. CeeDee Lamb was a fine pick at the 2-3 turn. It's just I had a tougher time stomaching that than I did Amari Cooper at the 3-4 turn on Underdog. That's how I ended up with as much Amari as I did. It's just when I got to the 2-3 turn and CeeDee Lamb was there, it's just all right, CeeDee Lamb's a good pick here, but you know who else is a good pick here? Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Aaron Waller, Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson. And it's
every single one of those guys you're taking over CeeDee Lamb.
Okay, but yeah and no. If you took CeeDee Lamb in that spot, I'm yeah, I feel you. That's fine. I just ended up not taking Lamb as often as I ended up taking Amari. I was taking Allen Robinson more than CeeDee Lamb, and I was taking Justin Jefferson more than CeeDee Lamb, and Darren Waller. CeeDee Lamb for that fact.
Yeah, you can't pass up Waller there.
But CeeDee Lamb had a monster game though. Just because Amari Cooper dropped 40 fantasy points doesn't mean we should be ignoring that CeeDee Lamb had a monster game too.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, and it's these are guys, and now Gallup's going to be out, so he's going to miss 3 to 5 weeks. I think
3 to 5 weeks.
Yeah, so
Cedric Wilson season,
dude. I'm telling you, Cedric Wilson would be a strong wide receiver 2 on many football teams. If you told me right now, if you said, Chris, the Falcons can trade Russell Gage for Cedric Wilson straight up in real life, dude, give me Cedric Wilson. I think Cedric Wilson is a great talent. Okay, I won't say great, but I think he's a really good talent. I think he'd be a strong wide receiver 2 on most teams, maybe not most, but a lot of teams in the NFL. I think this is I think he's every bit as good as Michael Gallup.
Do you have any? Okay, I disagree with you. Michael Gallup's a baller. He's got an 1100 yard season on his resume. Michael Gallup's a baller. Do you have any Cedric Wilson on rosters right now?
No, I do not.
I do. I've got 3 or 4% Cedric Wilson on Underdog, and they're all in Dak Prescott stacks.
Of course they are.
It was I got to the 18th round. They're all in the puppy, and I'm thinking to myself, everyone and their mother is stacking Dak Prescott. How can I make my Dak stack bet different?
Yeah,
I'm looking for first place equity. I don't want to fucking hold hand. I'm freaking sorry. It's a family show. I don't want to hold hands with the rest of the field with my Dak Amari Lamb stack or Dak Amari Gallup or Dak Lamb Gallup. No, I want to do something different. So I've on most of them I've got Dak Amari Cedric Wilson, and that tells a story. That tells the story that CeeDee Lamb got hurt or something. I'm not wishing injuries on anyone. I'm not predicting injuries, but in a best ball tournament, that's the type of thing you need to do. You can account for acts of God. You can embrace injury variance in a sense and tell yourself a story with lineups. And that's what I was doing with Cedric Wilson. And it now looks like he might be stepping into a starting role.
Well, look, Cedric Wilson last year against Seattle. And look, this is week 3 and he sort of disappeared the rest of the year because he's, the wide receiver 4 on the team. Cedric Wilson, 5 catches, 7 targets, 107 yards and 2 scores against Seattle last year. So this guy can have,
I remember that week.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, this guy can have smash weeks. Cedric Wilson can play. He just doesn't. You just don't see a whole lot of him because, like, there's one football. You know, Dak Prescott doesn't have 6 arms to throw 3 footballs. Like, so
He passes like he does, though.
he does. God, dude, he played so good. Like, look, you and I think agreed.
He was almost perfect.
First of all,
His interception wasn't his fault either.
it wasn't. You and I agreed that he was going to win MVP, and I've said all offseason long, Dallas is going to rip through the NFC East. I think they're going to win 13 games at least. I think this is going to be a damn good team all year. Dak Prescott, dude, I think he outplayed Brady last night. Like, Brady had the game-winning drive, but that's just what Tom Brady does. But look, that
Brady only
interception
had a
was
game-winning drive because he got the ball last.
well. That's
Dak
true.
Prescott did what he needed to do too, and Dak Prescott had to deal with getting neutered by his coach.
Well,
Like Mike McCarthy was playing for a field goal that whole drive.
but that's Mike McCarthy. That's
Yeah,
these
that's
are these
vintage
old school
McCarthy.
mentalities, right?
Yeah, if I'm still looking on sports books for him as first coach to get fired, I think that's a plus EV bet.
Oh man, that would be a good question. Who would I think would be the first coach to get fired?
Matt Nagy.
No, I think, dude, I'm going to be honest with you. I think Nagy is really going to, and Ryan Pace, maybe much to the chagrin of Bears fans like yourself, I think they're going to save themselves this year. I think they're really going to extend their life. I'm going to tell you who's going to get fired. I've already got my answer. I'm going to tell you who's going to get fired. It's going to be Vic Fangio. That's who's going to get fired.
Yeah,
Vic
I could
Fangio's
definitely see that. We need to stop this because I think I want to talk about this on the after party because I think this is going to be a fun conversation, not so much fantasy related for the after party tonight. Let's do that.
Speaking of great segues, if you want to listen to the after party after the show, join the Roto Bros Fantasy Advice Lounge. You see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Go to patreon.com/Roto Bros. Super easy. We've got 2 tiers, a silver tier for $2, a gold tier for $5. The gold tier is going to get you access. Well, both tiers are going to get you access into the Fantasy Lounge. It's the best place to get all of your advice, ask all of your fantasy questions for start sits, waivers, trades, you name it. We cover it all. You want to win some money in DFS, we've got you covered there. We got a betting channel. Obviously, a lot of you are bettors, gamblers, whatever you want to call it. If you guys want to Pete Rose it up, let's do it. Jump into the betting channel. We got you covered there. So you'll have a lot of fun in the Fantasy Advice Lounge. Everybody, all of our patrons will tell you it is an absolute blast. It's so much less toxic than all the fantasy Twitter and the fantasy Facebook and all that. Like, it is the best fantasy community you're going to find. But with the gold tier, you're going to get access into the lounge, but you're also going to get access to the weekly DFS pod that Mark and Joe are going to do. You're going to get in the spring for you dynasty heads. You're going to get the NFL draft scouting briefs that I'm going to do for all the incoming rookies. So you guys really get a lot. You're also going to get access to the after party episodes. So go to patreon.com/Roto Bros, pick your tier, sign up, download the Patreon app, log into it, and boom, you've got access to all the patron exclusive material. Okay, here's for another good segue. The Ravens backfield. That wasn't really a segue, but I missed my shot earlier. The Ravens backfield, this is the talk of the town. This is what everybody wants to talk about. This is what I want to talk about because I'm fired up about it. J.K. Dobbins obviously tore his ACL last week, and that was, it was a week or two ago. And so that was that shook the world. Like, we thought Cam Akers was going to be the earth shaker this year. J.K. Dobbins probably shook it even more. So Gus Edwards steps in, and we're like, look, hey, treat Gus Edwards. It's a Gus bus. Treat Gus Edwards just like you would J.K. Dobbins. At least that's where I was doing. And now Gus Edwards just yesterday tears his ACL. Well, guess what? I'm treating Tyson Williams the exact same as I was treating the other 2 guys. And before Gus went down, I was treating Tyson Williams the same as I was treating Gus Edwards before J.K. Dobbins went down. Tyson Williams, to me, Mark, is going to be a guy that could end up. We always like to look. There's not always a guy like this, but we always like to try to find who's going to be the game changer, the league winner, the guy that comes out and finishes as an RB1 and nobody saw it coming. Who's going to be the James Robinson? Who's going to be the Arian Foster? It could very well be Tyson Williams. And he is a guy that I've been touting show after show after show. Add him. Oh, he's available in free agency. Get his ass. Get him on your team, and your people are seeing the fruits of those labors and those actions starting to come to fruition. Thoughts on the backfield? Thoughts on the backfield?
The second people start talking to me about why Tyson Williams, I don't know how to pronounce it.
It is Tyson.
I didn't know this dude existed until 2 weeks ago. I'm full disclosure. I had never heard of this guy. And I don't think I'm the only person out there that has never heard of this guy, but no one else is going to admit that. But here's the important thing here. He's the type of player you need to be targeting. It's 100%. That simple. Like, and you can't just look at it as, well, let's just say 10 weeks from now, you drop Tyson Williams because he ended up being nothing. Did you still make the right decision by picking him up?
100%.
You did. You made the right decision picking him up, because it is not about any one result. It is about making the correct decision over time. A couple of years ago, I don't remember who the Lions running back was at the time, but he got hurt. Was it LeGarrette Blount? Maybe? I don't know. Their starter got hurt. No, it was Kerryon Johnson. Kerryon Johnson got hurt, and I went out and spent 20% of my fab on Ty Johnson. He ended up being nothing. Did I make the right decision? I made the right decision, because Ty Johnson could have been something. None of us know who is going to end up being the guy. We don't know. None of us have a freaking crystal ball in our hands, and we can't predict the future. All of these guys that get thrust into this scenario have similar probabilities to end up being a league breaker. James Robinson was that last year. You made the right decision picking up James Robinson. You're making the exact same decision picking up Tyson Johnson. Whether or not Tyson Johnson hits, you made the right decision. It's about making the right decisions over time. How many times out of 100 is this the right decision? Picking up the fringe running back that has a massive range of outcomes. You could be dropping him in 2 weeks, or he could be your RB1 in 2 weeks. That is always a good decision. Yeah. Especially when you're picking him up off of waivers. You don't have to pay anything. You might have to pay fab, but this is what your fab is for. Your fab is for picking up players like Tyson Johnson. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're spending 25% fab now or 25% fab in week 13. 25% fab is 25% fab. You need to be spending that fab when not at any specific point in the season, but when the time calls for it, when there is a player worth spending fab on, and that's what Tyson Johnson is.
Exact Tyson Williams, yes.
Williams, Kerryon Johnson, Johnson, Tyson Williams.
And Johnson, yeah.
I had never heard of this guy.
Yeah, and
never heard of him. I know he's explosive, and he's on a team that could give him carries. That's all I care about.
Yeah. And look, he went undrafted. He's 25 years old, so he's not a rookie. But so most people didn't know him. But here's the thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because before we get back to this Ravens backfield thing, I want to talk about that. People are and everybody needs to listen to this. If you are driving, obviously this show is live right now, but if you listen to this recorded back later on, if you're driving in your car, pull over and listen to this, because you need to absorb this. Stop being so damn conservative with your fab. Stop being conservative with it.
You could have ended that sentence at "stop being so conservative."
That's true. Stop. Be aggressive. Go out there and be aggressive. We heard this.
I can't believe you just did that. End the show. I don't want to be a part of the show anymore.
I need to put that in the intro.
That should be in the outtakes. That was bad.
That was bad. No, but listen, you've got to be aggressive, because how many times is there really a player available in free agency? You're like, it's only week 2. I don't really want to spend, $27 out of $100 out of this guy in week 2. But how often are guys that could absolutely I don't want to say break fantasy, but how often could guys possibly be guys that could be an anchor at the most important position in fantasy on your team? How often do they become available? Not often at all. Not often enough for you to justify, no, I think I'll spend $3 on this guy. No, go out and spend $29, $27, $33. You've still got $70. That doesn't mean that every single week you have to spend $12 on a player. Don't do that. Wait until there's a guy with a clear path that you don't know much about, that has a high range of that has a range of outcomes, that has a high ceiling within his range of outcomes. Tyson Williams has that. Look, does he have Austin Eckler in his range of No, he does not. But does he have J.K. Dobbins? What we thought J.K. Dobbins was going to be this year? Yes. He's the
All
starter.
all he has to do to be a league winner is like rush for 1,000 yards and run hot on touchdowns.
He can't
He
do
could
that?
rush for he could rush for 800 yards. He's explosive. He's explosive running behind a good offensive line, and he's got Lamar Jackson to freeze linebackers.
He's got juice.
People, yeah, exactly. He's got juice. He wasn't good in college. I don't care. He ended up in the NFL anyway. Somebody saw something they liked. He's here. I don't care what he did at college at that point. He's here now. That's all that matters. And the guy's got juice. He's probably more explosive than Le'Veon Bell and Devonta Freeman at this point.
Without question, he is.
They might play over him because the dude just can't play. I don't know. I don't get to make that decision. The coaches do. And I'm not in the coaching room to determine what is the most likely scenario here between these three running backs. So all I can do is bet on upside.
Yes.
And if any one of these guys ends up starting, the guy with the most upside is the dude with the most juice, and that is Tyson Williams.
By far. You can watch. There is a video clip on YouTube. Type in Tyson Williams preseason. It's not just highlight tape. It is every snap that this guy took in preseason. Tell me this guy doesn't have juice. Now, we're not saying he's going to be Saquon Barkley, but can he be what you thought Gus Edwards was going to be as the starter? Can he be what we thought J.K. Dobbins was going to be back in May? Yes, he absolutely can. There were 6 running, and a lot of people have heard me say this, there were 6 running backs last year with at least 700 rushing yards in each of the last 3 seasons. Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara, and Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards did it as the backup, the number 2 running back for the Baltimore Ravens. So if Gus Edwards could do it as the number 2, why don't we think Tyson Williams could do it as the number 2? Oh, you do think he can. So why can't he do that, and even more, as the starter for a Lamar Jackson run-heavy offense? It doesn't make any sense to me. He is in an excellent spot. Latavius Murray was just signed, but we're talking about, you're going to tell me that Latavius Murray is a problem and is the running back to own in that Ravens backfield over Tyson Williams. The same Latavius Murray that got relegated to 3rd string by undrafted Tony Jones, okay, and released because he didn't want to take a pay cut after he got benched. The same Le'Veon Bell that sucked with the best offense in the NFL last year, sucked with the New York Jets the year before, didn't play a snap the year before that. He hasn't done anything in almost 4 years. I don't want to hear about Le'Veon Bell. I don't want to hear about it. And I don't want to hear about Devontae Freeman. We know he doesn't have it. Trenton Cannon is way down the line. Tyson Williams has got this entire backfield to work with here, and guess what? The best part is he gets to showcase it on Monday night as the bell cow because Latavius Murray doesn't know the system as well as he needs to. He's still got to get his legs under him. Jamison Hensley, the beat writer for the Ravens, admitted that today. Le'Veon Bell, we know he's not ready to rock. We know Devontae Freeman's not. So Tyson Williams is going to get a large workload against an incredibly weak run defense in week 1. So he's going to have plenty of opportunity here. That's my diatribe on Tyson Williams. He needs to be owned. He needs to be started. I'm starting him in so many leagues because I have, at least in week 1. I believe in this guy.
Yeah, but you're embracing the variance, though.
Yes.
And that's that is the key there. Would you be that surprised if you looked down on your team and saw that he scored 5 fantasy points? I wouldn't be. But at the same time, if he ran for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, I would also be like, yeah, that sounds about right. He's the Ravens starting running back.
Exactly.
This is such a high variance play with a high risk and high reward. But that's... And I've been saying this in the Discord. This is one of those moves, and starting him is one of those moves that increases your win probability and it increases your first place equity in the league. It is really difficult to increase your first place equity on a roster without also increasing your last place equity a little bit. It really is if you ain't first, you're last. And if you're not winning first place in a fantasy league, you're at best breaking even.
And sometimes leagues will pay out for second place. The highest scoring team in the league gets second place. But that's all the more reason to try to increase the upside to where you can increase the amount of points that you score, even if you didn't win the league. So
right. But something that a lot of people aren't taking into account is all right, I finished in second place. The buy-in was $50. I won $100, so I'm profitable. Is that the only league you played in? Because if you played in 5 other money leagues and you lost all those, no, you lost money on the year. Just because you came in second in one league and won $100 in one league, you are still a net losing player. So like that's why first place is so important. Third place, second, as far as I'm concerned, third place is a net loss. Like getting your money back. Like if you paid $50 to enter a league and you finished third place and won $50, I'd rather lose. I'd rather lose at that point because like that means if I came in third place, I'm probably making decisions that led me directly to third place. I was not making decisions that led me to first. Coming in second is different because at that point you're coming down to the variance of one game. You're coming down to the variance of one championship game, and you were making decisions up to that point to get to that championship. So you were making plus EV decisions. But when you're finishing third, fourth, fifth, you're making decisions that led you to third, fourth, and fifth place. Like you're there for a reason. You're there because you weren't increasing your first place equity. You were improving and increasing your min cash equity, which is something we talk about a lot in DFS. But the same principle is true for seasonal leagues. If you finish in third place and you cashed out $50 and you're in other money leagues, you're still a net losing player. You're not profitable.
Right. And look, well, you're right. Tyson Williams might suck. Like he might end up sucking. And he might be a bad player. He might be a bad fantasy. It turned out to be a bad fantasy player. But if he does, I don't think it's going to be because 31-year-old Latavius Murray, who just lost his job to another undrafted rookie running back, outplayed an undrafted veteran running back in the same backfield. Sorry, the odds of that happening are slim. I don't care what any reports are saying. To me, if Tyson Williams doesn't give you some solid value in return as long as he stays healthy on the season, it's because he's bad. It's not because Dusty Le'Veon Bell and Dusty Devontae Freeman and Dusty Latavius Murray outplayed him. I just don't think that's going to be the reason why.
Betting on him to be bad is a bad bet, though. And it's not a bad bet because it's more probable that he's good. It's a bad bet because, like, what do you stand to gain from that? You have no risk absorbing. Like, you have zero risk and all the upside. Like that's the point. It is probably it's more probable that he's bad. Like I'm just going to be outright with it. It's more probable that he's bad, and it's more probable that this backfield is just 3 or 4 dudes splitting, taking 25 to 33% of the snaps weekly, and it's just gross and we can't touch it. That's probably the most likely outcome for the Ravens backfield, but we're not playing for that outcome. We're trying to put ourselves, and this is a DFS principle that you can carry over into seasonal leagues. You are trying to put yourself, you're not trying to be right the most. You are trying to put yourself in a position to make the most money when you are right. You can do the same thing in seasonal leagues, and that's one of those things. Do you really care that much about being right on Tyson Williams? I don't. Like
not
if I
you
get
lose.
him wrong,
If you lose.
I don't. Exactly. Like I don't care if I get this guy wrong. I don't care. I'm making the decision that could have won me money. So
exactly.
I'm just trying to make the decision that wins me the most money if that decision is correct. And I'm not trying to be right the most amount of times.
I also want to point out, Mark and I are not saying, and nobody is saying that Tyson Williams is going to get 84% snap share like Ezekiel Elliott is. Nobody's saying, nobody thinks that. I don't think he's going to be an absolute Saquon Barkley-esque workhorse. Like, he's not going to do that. But can he get 60, 65% of it? Yes. And it's not like he plays. Here's another thing. It's not like he plays for the Jets. It's not like he plays for, is he going to be better than Tevin Coleman? You bet your ass he will be. I would bet the house on that. It's not like he plays for a bad football team with a bad offensive line. He plays for a good football team with a good offensive line, with a good quarterback on a run-heavy offense. What's there not to like? Oh, he didn't do good in college. Okay, but I don't care what he did or didn't do in college. I just don't care. He made it into the NFL. He's going to get a chance to start on a good football team that is coached well in a good scheme, a running back friendly scheme. What's not to like? Take the chance. Like, it doesn't make any sense for these people. He's a better investment than Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman and Trenton Cannon and Latavius Murray. That's a fact. He's a better investment. I'm sorry. So if for some reason you are going in tonight and you're putting in waivers and for some reason Tyson Williams is there and along with Latavius Murray, you are absolutely 150% prioritizing Tyson Williams.
I agree with you. If Tyson Williams ends up being the guy, he wins you more money than Le'Veon Bell would if Le'Veon Bell ended up being the guy. And it's that simple. Like, if Le'Veon Bell ends up being the 65% snap share guy, he doesn't win you as many leagues, or he doesn't win you leagues as often as Tyson Williams being the guy would be. And that's where the not predicting outcomes, just trying to make profitable decisions comes into play. Tyson Williams would win you more money if he ends up being the guy than Le'Veon Bell or Devonta Freeman if they ended up being the guy. That's the whole thesis behind this.
Right. And we have seen, last point I want to make on Tyson. We have seen the last 2 seasons, or the last 3 seasons, I believe, 2 or 3. I think maybe the last 2 seasons, what team has been bottom 3 in the NFL in targets to running backs? The Baltimore Ravens. We know, we have evidence, we have videotape evidence that even on the best offense in the NFL, Le'Veon Bell can't run between the tackles efficiently anymore. He just can't. He's dust. We can't. Okay? He can't. So that leaves Le'Veon Bell. Can he still catch passes? Maybe. And you're like, okay, well, he can catch passes. That's good. But he plays on a football team that isn't going to be throwing the football to running back. So, his upside is severely capped. So give me the guy that probably, that does have enough juice to run between the tackles efficiently. Maybe he sucks, but at least I will take the best option out of the guys that suck. There you go. There we go. I'm Tyson'd out. I'm hot. Mark.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad we saw eye to eye on that, though. I appreciate
that was nice. We agreed on something. We agreed. It's always nice when that happens. So expectations for week 1. Obviously, the rest of the season is coming up. So I can't wait to sit with my friends in front of the projector at my buddy's house, and we're going to be watching all together. I'm going to have my Kyle Pitts jersey on, brand new Kyle Pitts jersey, and we're going to be watching Red Zone for 7 hours of commercial-free football. We're going to be watching it. I hope that's
hold on.
Is that trademarked? Could we get sued?
Probably. I've been practicing this. I practice this in my car on the way home every day after work. 7 hours of commercial-free football. How was that? Was that good?
I love it. Look, that's worth getting sued over. If Scott Hansen sues us,
couldn't agree more.
That's worth it.
He wouldn't sue us. He's too nice of a guy.
Oh, he's the best. He's the best.
I agree.
Okay.
He's a treasure.
So, what do you think? Give me a couple things like expectations or some predictions or guys that you think after going into week 1, like Tuesday morning, some guys that people are going to be just hammer smashing on the waiver wire, trying to get that edge above the rest of their competition. Are there any guys or anything that you think is going to happen on Sunday that people should look out for?
I guess it all depends because, I don't know who went undrafted in what leagues because I look at who was getting drafted at the end of drafts on Underdog, and it's going to be completely different compared to who was getting drafted at the end of drafts in most managed leagues.
Yeah.
But some guys that it wouldn't surprise me if they're the hot waiver wire ad going into week 2. Khalif Raymond is one. He could be a full-time starter with the Lions. And it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world if we looked back and was just like, oh, he saw 18% target share and 31% of the air yards. Interesting. He played 90% snaps. I don't know who this guy is, but I had heard of Khalif Raymond before. I played him in DFS last year when he was a Titan, but some people might not know who he is because he's nobody. And he might be a full-time starter for the Lions. So it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world if he had a spike week and people were like, oh, got to go out and get Khalif Raymond now.
Anybody else? Is Khalif
Not
Raymond
really.
the only one?
I don't like that's the thing is I don't like making these predictions anymore. That's not how I play fantasy football. It's really hard for me because is Josh Palmer not owned in seasonal leagues. He was getting drafted in every underdog draft from July onward. But I think in a lot of seasonal leagues, I don't think he got drafted.
No, he's undrafted, and I'm talking a large majority of seasonal leagues with like 5 to 7 bench spots. Yeah,
that's inefficient. He should be owned, in my opinion. I think he should be owned. In like anything 12 teams and bigger, I think Josh Palmer should be owned. And I think we could see that as early as this weekend.
He's got a good opportunity in front of him. And look, there is no question about it. You know, BMW just ain't it. Like you can't rely on him to stay on the field. He's always nicked up and always dealing with a nagging injury. It's always a lower body injury, so like that's always lingering as well. I just think that they are maybe looking for a guy, somebody to play on the outside across from Keenan that can pretty much do everything and go deep and be a more reliable threat. It is not out of the realm of possibility that Josh Palmer relegates BMW to the bench. It's not, and you know, that's why I don't have any shares of BMW this year. I'm selling them all. I'm out.
I don't think he would relegate Mike Williams. I don't think that would happen. He would relegate Jalen Guyton.
Well, I think that's going to happen.
I don't think there's a range of outcomes where Mike Williams gets outright benched. I don't think that happens, but I could be wrong. Here's an interesting one too. AJ Green wasn't getting drafted. I get why. It's fine that, you weren't taking him in the last round of your draft, but like if he ended up being the wide receiver 2 on the Cardinals and not Rondale Moore, would any of us be surprised? I wouldn't be. Like we look back and AJ Green played 90% snaps and was only out targeted by DeAndre Hopkins. I'd be like, yep, that's the NFL for you. Give the dusty, useless wide receiver the work over the young, promising, explosive rookie.
I can understand it. Look, I'm on record. I don't like Rondale Moore week to week. I don't think he's going to be a reliable fantasy option. I think he's going to be a better real life weapon than fantasy. But I do think in week 1, this is a guy we're going to see him in the end zone. I think we're going to see him approaching 100 yards receiving. I think he's going to have a big week in week 1, but it's going to be one of those like classic Sammy Watkins type of, maybe not that level, but it's going to be one of those things where it's like, oh my God, gotta own this guy. And then he like disappears for 6 weeks. So
those are my favorite though. Oh God, the Sammy Watkins week 1 spike weeks, the best narrative in fantasy football, the most exploitable narrative in fantasy football, right next to the Deshaun Jackson week 1.
Oh,
week God. 1, got to play Deshaun Jackson.
Yep.
He only goes off in week 1. Yeah, that's actionable information. That's what the people want to hear.
He gets a serious. He goes 5 for 167 and 2 scores, and one of them's a 76-yard touchdown, and then he pulls up at the end of the fourth quarter and he's out for the year. That's
Deshaun Jackson. That's
Deshaun
Jackson, Sammy Watkins. They're the same player.
That's the story. Okay, so here's an expectation because I will have a conviction, Mark. I'm not afraid to do it. I will play this way because I know it's what the freaking people want. Javonte Williams.
I don't care what the people want. I want the people to win. I'm not here to please their needs. I'm here to teach them how to win fantasy leagues.
I don't please their needs. This is a family show. I'm gonna do both. Call me Miss Cleo because I'm gonna tell you the future. Javonte Williams is gonna outplay Melvin Gordon severely in week 1, and he is gonna torch the Giants. I think Javonte Williams. I'm not saying bench Saquon Barkley for Javonte Williams, but I'm just saying that I think the result of having Javonte Williams, if the situation is right on your team, to have him as a starter. I think it's going to be a really good week to do that against the Giants defense, the run-heavy team, good offensive line. Teddy's the quarterback. I think Javonte Williams is going to have a really, really big week. And then I think as far as guys that I think you could surprise, I think one is Ramondre Stevenson if he plays. I think he's a little iffy right now, but I think Ramondre Stevenson is going to be one of those guys in the New England backfield where it's like, okay, I love Damian Harris. Everybody knows I do. But Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is going to be heavily involved the entire season. I think we're going to see a lot more than people think, and this is a hometown favorite choice for me, but I think we're going to be seeing a lot more Kylan Hill than a lot of people would tend to think we would see in week 1. I do. I think they see the all-around talent, and I think they're like, okay, Let's kind of give this guy some looks. He's probably not gonna get in the end zone. He's probably not, but he's gonna get more snaps, I think, in week 1 than a lot of people believe. Nico Collins, I think he's gonna start across from Brandon Cooks. Look, he's not on a good team, doesn't have a good quarterback in Tyrod, but they're gonna be playing from behind. He's gonna, get some volume. I think he's a guy that could go off and have sort of a, not to that Sammy Watkins level, but I think he could go out. I mean, if Nico Collins finishes week 1, Mark, with 7 catches for 102 yards and a score, am I really going to be that surprised? I'm not. Now, he's not going to do that every week, but he's got that Kenny Golladay play style. That's his archetype. That's what he is. I wouldn't be surprised with as much as they're probably going to throw and be behind. Yeah, I think that's possible. But I'm telling you right now, this is the guy that I think is going to be the guy in week 2. Everybody's clamoring to add if he's not already on your team. Juwan Johnson. Traquan Smith on the IR, going to miss at least the first 3 weeks. Who's going to step up as the wide receiver 2? It's supposed to be Lil Jordan Humphrey behind Marquez Callaway. But I'm telling you right now, Juwan Johnson, it might actually lead this team in targets. Converted wide receiver to tight end. Juwan, it might be even better if I could pronounce his name. Juwan Johnson, Mark, is the guy.
He's the leverage play over Marquez Callaway in DFS, isn't he? It's Juwan Johnson.
Hey, if you're playing a cheap Jameis Winston stack, I'm just saying. I'm no DFS expert. I just play one on the Roto Bros podcast. I think that is a cheap stack that could really pay some big dividends. So Juwan Johnson is the name to remember for your week 2 waiver wire ads.
All right. So do you want a conviction, Chris? Do the people want a conviction from me?
I think everybody's clamoring for one.
Do I need to present a hot take?
Do it.
Here's my hot take for the week. All right. Michael Pittman emerges as an alpha wide receiver, Allen Robinson clone, and finishes as a top 5 fantasy wide receiver in week 1.